Over the years in our culture, we have seen a rapid awareness of sex trafficking and the sexual exploitation of minors. And as many people may not speak out about the topic, many others will. We have a very special episode for you today, as I have a very special guest. Her name is Catie Reay. She's also known as the TikTok advocate. She has literally spent her adult life advocating, dedicating her life to being a voice for the voiceless. She has also made an effort to go after the governmental legislation that needs to be passed to make sure that minors are protected when it comes to the digital era that we live in. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you are a person that has struggled with this or has been a victim of this in the past, Catie Reay, known as the TikTok advocate, would be a great one to talk to. Enjoy the episode. Welcome back to the Peer Purpose Podcast. Such a delight to be here with you and walk this journey out. I have a special guest in the building. I think for me, it's probably the biggest. I've never actually talked to a person that actually has like a crazy social media following. And as you guys saw in the intro, this is one of them that does. And her name is Catie Reay. Catie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
That's awesome. I'm telling you what, for a while now, I've watched you. I know people that know you. We have a lot of mutual acquaintances and actually some family members that you have and different things like that. And so for a while, actually, Chelsea, my admin, you know Chelsea, has said, you should get Catie Reay on the podcast. And for a while, I was like, yeah, I'd love to meet her and different things. And then recently, we get connected and here we are. And so we're going to jump right in. You're doing a lot of things, okay? And not on a small scale. You're doing some big things. And so we're going to start out. I'm just going to ask you, give me a little bit in the viewers, your story.
Absolutely. So most of my stories are trigger warning. I always like to prepare people ahead of time. If you don't have the emotional or the mental capacity to listen to a conversation about sexual abuse or religious trauma, now's your time to take a pause, take care of yourself, and we'll have you back when you're ready to listen. I was born in a religious cult, and I experienced over a decade of sexual abuse at the hand of a family member. When you're that young and in a time where your beautiful brain hasn't even developed yet, you're not quite sure what to do with all of that trauma, and I began coping unhealthily. Drugs and alcohol really don't help you cope properly, so I attempted to commit suicide a multitude of times, and every time it failed, thank God, I landed myself back in the same place asking, what comes next? If it's not death, it's got to be life, and what does life look like for someone suffering like me? And I found trauma therapy, and for a long time, recognized that I needed something more than what I had currently, but was afraid to really address what was going on. We recognized that trauma lives in the body in so many ways, and it had impacted my relationships, my reactionary behavior, my responses to people, and everything burning down left and right left me alone, isolated and ostracized. So through trauma therapy and a personal, intimate relationship with Jesus, I came to find a freedom I didn't know was possible, and most people told me was impossible. And I started sharing that on social media, and people came from all over the world to ask how they could find that too.
Wow, that's incredible. You know, I'm big on stories. You know, I share my story. That's how I started. It's actually, my viewers have heard it many times. I actually started speaking by accident.
Yeah.
And I came from, my background is also alcohol. I had a 10-year alcohol addiction, twice inpatient treatment for 30 days. Probably could have done more, but realized later on, and I've said this on here before, it was never the alcohol that was actually the problem. It was the things that I needed to heal from.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was all the stuff that I dealt with as a middle child. So if that gives you any idea, the middle child, no wonder why I'm a speaker, right? I had an older brother. He's a year older. And then I have a younger sister. And so I smack dab in the middle. I did feel like I didn't get things from my parents that I should have got, different things like that. And so obviously as we get older, we look for things, and I call them the counterfeit.
Yeah.
We look for the counterfeit.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I want to ask you is, did you ever think just by sharing your story, it would lead to all this?
No, I had no idea. And I tell people that all the time, that God's idea of full circle restoration for me was always so beyond my imaginative version of it.
Yeah.
I anticipated maybe I would be able to sleep without nightmares, and that would look like full circle restoration. Maybe I would be able to be touched by my husband and not be scared of abuse. Maybe I'd be able to hug my kids and not be afraid of hurting them, as I realizing back to all the times being touched by my parents almost always led to abuse. Constant reactive abuse that lived cyclically. Full circle restoration looked like finding a space where I was no longer afraid to exist in joy and freedom, and then sharing that with other people so they can have it too. Like, it wasn't just going to be me having freedom.
Right.
But God said, I want you to testify because I want to do it again. And I want to do it on a scale that you had, like, your little brain can't even imagine. And 1.3 million followers later.
Well, that's crazy. The TikTok Advocate, 1.3 million followers.
It's crazy.
When did you realize that this is like happening? When was that moment for you?
I'm going to be honest. I still wake up not sure that it's really happening.
Sure.
I every day am so humbled by the opportunity to have a platform that size and an influence to move people to calls to action that create legitimate change.
Yeah.
Every day I am so humbled by this opportunity, and I'm still in awe of the ways God wants to use the work that I'm doing. I really think it sunk in that when I hit 1 million followers, I was like, oh, there's no going back now.
There's no
there's no going back now. You got that 1.0 M on your platform.
Yeah. You know what's amazing is, have you ever seen the movie 42?
I'm not sure.
So it's about Jackie Robinson. Do you know?
Oh, yes. Okay. I have seen this movie.
So
yes,
I think
it's really good.
Is Harrison Ford?
Yeah.
Is in the movie, and there's a part in that movie, and I always go back to it quite a bit. And this was a couple years ago where things had gotten a little hard.
Yeah.
And, you know, because it's amazing to me. So I'll bring that story back. But it's amazing to me when you have something, right, that people need. It doesn't even stay in your own little lane.
Yeah.
It grows.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the way it branches out is exponential. It just gets it's almost like it takes on a life of its own.
And I'm just like, I'm getting goosebumps with that, because I look at me. It happened by accident. I helped get someone into treatment. And then from there, what happened was I get calls from my high school football coach. Hey, can you come speak to the team? So I go speak to the team. They share some pictures. And all of a sudden, someone else contacts me. Happens a few more times, like, well, this is what it was supposed to, maybe this is it. Maybe this is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden a doors start opening for schools. And then before you know it, I'm down here and I'm running a program that I believe is going to change the way public schools approach mental and emotional health, and already has been. And it's just like, when you decide to get healthy,
yeah,
when you decide to say, you know what, I'm going to actually take ownership, because obviously we're not responsible for the things that happen to us.
Yeah.
But we are responsible for the healing.
Yeah.
We have to be, right? No one's going to do it for you. We've talked a little bit earlier. No one's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
We have to be able to say, yeah, this did happen. It's not my fault.
Yeah.
But what am I going to do to get on the other side?
Yeah. And if you're listening and that just sounds so impossible, the idea of pulling yourself from the pit, I want you to know I've spent so many years in it. I became friends with it. I got so comforted by the idea of just existing in that space, and no matter how lonely it was and isolating it was, I'm so grateful for the people who spent time in there with me.
Yeah.
But I'm just as grateful for the people who reached down to help me get out. So if you think it feels impossible to get out, just know there's people around you who care and they want to help you out, and stop and spend some time with those people, because the pit is a temporary place, but it can be a forever place if you let it be. And you're so worth standing out in freedom and breathing in the air.
Man. So good. I remember that moment for me as well. I remember standing in that place, and I'm going to speak to what you just said, because I'm saying the same thing. I remember standing in the mirror in treatment, January 2nd, 2015. I said, all right, Bob, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We going to lay down and let this thing kill us?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Are we going to stand back up? Are we going to fight for our life? And I said, yeah.
I had a same mirror resolution. I swear it. It's
Really?
always in the mirror.
It's in the mirror. Why is it in the mirror?
I think because sometimes we get to a point in our life where we don't recognize ourselves.
Ooh,
and that
take
was
me deeper. Take me deeper.
I looked at myself in the mirror and I didn't even know who was inside the body that I was looking at, because it wasn't Catie. It wasn't anyone that I knew, but whatever lies I had partnered with for so long that made home in me and became part of me and manifested into all that I was, to a point where I could not make eye contact with myself. And I said, okay, this is the turning point for me. This is where I truly work on finding who I'm called to be and who is supposed to exist inside here, because I am an empty shell. And if I can't even make eye contact with myself, what am I doing?
Yeah. So, oh my gosh. Our stories parallel in a lot of different ways besides a couple things. But it's really amazing to me, you know, when I sat there and I said, what are we going to do? And I remember actually saying, because my whole life, right, I was a college football player. I had a full ride to Michigan State University, and I thought football was the path, right? And and honestly, what it was is it was just a way for me to hide from who I really was, right? I used that as the thing, but my whole life I was compared to my older brother. And so I remember sitting in that place of, I said, I'm going to prove it to everybody that I'm somebody.
Yeah.
And I finally said to myself, I said, nah, that's where I'm going to stop you this time, Bobby. Your whole life you've been trying to prove things to people. But you know what I really think? I think you're the one that doesn't like who you see when you look in the mirror.
Yeah.
I think you're the one that doesn't think you measure up.
Yeah.
And in fact, I don't think this has anything to do with anybody else but you. You didn't even play football for the right reasons. You just wanted to be better than Willie.
Yeah.
And when I realized that, and I said, it's time to prove it to yourself that you are good enough and who you are is enough. Yeah. That mirror moment, we'll call it the mirror moment. That mirror moment changes a lot of things, because that's when something clicks in us. Yeah. And we're like, we're not going back. Yeah. And I remember driving, actually, it was the night before I went to treatment, and I was in a car with a group of people. And actually, one of the girls still hits me up to this day. Yeah. And I was just randomly sitting there. And I feel like this had to be the Holy Spirit. Because I said, I'm done. I'm done with this life. Yeah. I'm not going back. Like, I don't know what my life is going to look like, but it's going to look different. And then shortly after, you know, it starts evolving, and that girl still hits me up. It's like, Bobby, I remember that night. She goes, I can't wait to see how far you take this thing. And so I just thought that's amazing. And so I want to really convey that to the listeners, that we aren't responsible for the things that happen. Yeah. But we are responsible for the healing that needs to take place. And there are people, like you said, that will reach down in that pit, right? And pull us out. Because you don't want to come down with you. Yeah. Because if they sit in the pit with you, then there's two people sitting in the pit.
And the number of times you have a good soul willing to sit next to you and listen. Absolutely. And be like, I mean, that's true empathy. Yeah. Someone crawling in there and saying, man, I've been here. Yeah. It's not easy. Come out when you're ready. Right. But those people willing to stick their hand down, throw a rope down, set a ladder down, man, keepers. Those are keepers. Keepers of the soul.
Right. No agenda.
Yeah. Man, but we are so responsible for our own healing. And if we don't, we're going to end up in rooms we don't belong in conversations we don't belong in, making promises we have no business making, committing to things we have no business committing to, in jobs we weren't intended to be in. And the number of times that I did something for a little sliver of validation because I didn't get it growing up. When you're constantly running after the praise of man because you didn't get any as a child, and you recognize it pales in comparison. Yeah. It pales in comparison to knowing for yourself that you are worthy and you are valid and you matter. And everybody gets that from somewhere else. For me, that's in my relationship with Jesus. For some, that's in self-validation and self-gratification. For some, they have different faith walks and they have different religious affiliations. Whatever it is for you, I hope that you learn to find peace in a space where your validation does not have to come from man, because it will fail you every time.
Every time. Every
single time. And it will leave you wishing that you had more, and it will never be enough.
Never.
And then eventually you're in rooms you don't belong signing contracts you don't belong signing, and taking job offers that were never intended for you, and you're miserable. Right. Still seeking validation that doesn't fix it.
Because you're living out You're living outside of why you're
Because what, you got a little bit of childhood trauma? Me too, bestie. Let's fix it.
Well, let's fix it. And so I have a lot of kids that I work with. Actually just finished up for the year. Just finished up. So in schools. But I have a lot of kids that work, and I always tell them, and I just wanted you to speak to this. I always say it's not enough to sit in the room with a counselor.
Yeah.
No more than me standing in the garage makes me a car. And so what would you say to the people that, I have a counselor, but I don't really trust them, different things like that. What would you say to those kids that need to really do the work, but they're hesitant to do the work for whatever reason, right? They might not trust people, and I get that. There's so many different, and there's compassion for that, and there's grace for that.
For sure.
But what would you say to that kid that just goes to counseling but doesn't really open up?
Yeah. So starting with the trust portion, if you're going to counseling specifically because you're struggling with your mental health or you have some kind of trauma that you're trying to work past, I'd completely understand your trust issues. Establishing trust can be difficult, and with time, trust can be established if that person proves themselves to be a safe person for you. Take the leap. Just take the leap and open up. And I know it sounds like the worst possible thing that could ever happen, but the worst thing that could happen is they're not a good fit and you can find another.
Right. That's good.
Because if you keep fighting for yourself, you'll eventually get to a place where your threshold is increased and your ability to sustain more increases and your ability to fight for yourself harder increases and your likelihood of just staying alive increases. And that's what we want you to do. We want you to just stay alive and then we can fight.
Yeah.
Because you got to start there.
Yeah.
You have to take the leap, have some faith that this person has the best interest for you in mind, and they want to help you get to cross the finish line where you are able to thrive.
Yeah.
And healing's not linear. It's an up and down process.
Yeah.
There is no, I started this journey and I've summited. You're going to be climbing this hill forever, but it gets easier with time because that threshold increases, but it doesn't until you take the leap.
Wow. Wow. So I always talk about a ceiling. We all have a ceiling.
Yeah.
Right. It's that thing that we always hit.
Yeah.
Right. And then we revert back to what we always know.
Yep.
And so someone asked me one time, how did you know you can improve? And for me, it was, I would always go back to the bottle whenever something went wrong. When I remember coming out of treatment the second time and I went through something, it was actually a breakup. And my first instinct was, let's go get the bottle.
Yeah.
Let's go do that. And then I started thinking about it. I go, but, Bobby, circumstances change a little bit.
Yeah.
So what happens if she comes back tonight or tomorrow or in 3 days and says, no, I want to be with you again?
Yeah.
And what if she comes back and says, you know what, I made a mistake, different things, but you make a permanent decision based on a temporary circumstance.
Yeah.
And so I said, what if we just pressed into the pain on this time, this one time, and talk to some people about what we're going through, and let's see what happens. And I remember not going to the bottle, and that's when I broke through that ceiling.
Yeah. And
I was able to now know that I could get through something hard sober, right, without my badge of honor.
Yeah.
And for you, it was different. For the next person might be different, but I knew I could get through that. Right. So now the next hard thing comes and I can get through that.
Yeah.
Before you know it, I have a series of hard things because I don't lie to these kids. Life will hit you.
Yeah.
Even if you have 1.3 million followers on TikTok, you're still going to go through your life. You got a family, you got kids, you got different things, right, that you're dealing with, just everyday life. And so when you go through that stuff, it's never going to stop coming. And now hopefully it's not constant. Yeah. Right. But what you do is when you break through that ceiling, you're able to go through life. And they say it in AA like this, accept life on life's terms. Yeah. Right? And get through the hard things. And once we break through that ceiling, and so I see many people being able to break through. You broke through the ceiling. Well, what happens when you break through the ceiling? Now you're able to help someone else break through their ceiling. So I love what you said about that. Just being in counseling and opening up and being able to really say, all right, if it's not a good fit, that's fine. Yeah. But what if you do and it changes your life?
It categorically changed mine.
Right.
My ability to have someone help me recognize that my behavior wasn't delinquency. It wasn't some bad child behavior, but it was a result of my traumatic upbringing.
Yeah.
It was a manifestation of the trauma existing inside of my body, and years of coping unhealthily created neural pathways the size of highways. So it is inevitable that my brain will first go to unhealthily coping when I'm triggered. And I have to create new neural pathways. And it's so difficult to not want to go to the unhealthy coping because it is a neural pathway. And the new neural pathway is this tiny little sliver in our mind where we say, maybe I could do something else. Maybe I could feel my feelings. And this concept absolutely broke my brain. When someone asked me if I've ever really felt my feelings, I'm like, I'm in my body every day.
Right.
Of course I've felt my feelings. They're like, no, like, have you ever really felt them? Like when you're triggered and your stomach gets tight and your chest starts to race and your respirations increase and your arm starts to tingle. Like, have you ever really sat there and felt them? And it really scared me because no, every single time I've ever felt those, I immediately went into fight or flight. I wanted to run. 9 times out of 10, my primary trauma response was disassociation, so I'm gone. The moment I feel them, my brain is disconnecting me from my body to protect me from the physiological responses to trauma. But I chose to sit in them in that moment, to feel the way they transitioned throughout my body, to feel the way they would increase and subside until they were completely gone. And then I challenged myself to ask myself every time after sitting with my feelings and they'd leave, but did you die? And when the answer was always no, I recognized it wouldn't kill me, but coping unhealthily would.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost did on a multitude of occasions. And so I started sitting with my feelings and I started asking myself, how much might it change the world if people knew that they wouldn't die from feeling their feelings? But they don't have to feel them as aggressively as they're feeling right now if they address them.
Wow. Come on.
Some snaps for the people.
That's amazing. Did you ever intend to get out and actually go when you started, like when your TikTok started taking off? Did you actually intend to get out and put boots on the ground and actually really start fighting for this topic that you go after, the sexual exploitation of children?
Long before I started putting any of this on social media, it had always been my dream to speak at anti-human trafficking, sexual exploitation, sextortion conferences. So the helpers of the world, teachers, law enforcement, EMTs, doctors, people who are primarily with minor children could see the signs firsthand from a survivor. That was my goal, is I wanted to speak to these people who would be in predominantly child spaces so they knew what the red flags looked like and they could intervene early, because if someone saw my red flags early and they could have intervened, maybe my abuse wouldn't have gone on for over a decade. And that was my heart's mission as a child, still in abuse. One day I will tell my story in front of crowds of people so they know how to protect a child, so they'd never have to go through what my siblings and I did. Oh. But I never knew it would be to this capacity. I just am really honored. I think it's incredible.
How do you feel you've embraced that? Because I love that. How do you feel you've embraced like what it's all become?
I think it's really come from a place of gratitude for my followers. Yeah. That my platform wouldn't be what it is in the context that it is without the people who support it. I do a lot of calls to action, asking people to sign surveys, legislation, sending letters to their congressmen, calling police departments, ICAC units, sending hot tit blinds to the FBI and the National Center on Missing and Exploited Children. Those calls to action aren't possible without people who are willing to take them. And I think what it's created in me is an extraordinary comfort in knowing that societally so many people are really, really sick of the exploitation of children. And it's made me very aware of that because of the number of people who are willing to make these calls, send these emails, sign these surveys, and call their local congressmen. So I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude. It wouldn't be possible what we do without so many people willing to climb this hill with us.
And that's huge. I love that. You're bold. It takes some boldness and courage, and obviously you got God with you to go after this, because you're going after a deep topic.
Yep.
So how do you decide what you go after? Like your videos on TikTok and what you really speak on, how do you just, like, what makes you feel like, yeah, I'm really supposed to do this, or nah, I don't touch that one?
I'd say I've got probably 4 different categories. First, the most prominent is request from my followers. I get a lot of requests. Can you cover a story? Can you elevate my story? Can you go more in depth about this topic? Really led by my viewership, which is so helpful for content creation when they say that these are the things we'd like to see. It's my lane, so it's easy for me to cover. Not necessarily emotionally easy, and definitely not spiritually easy, but easy in the context that I already have the knowledge to share. And then we have relatable news, things that have come up in the legislature, bills that are being passed, things that are changing inside of the political landscape, inside of the sexual exploitation, human trafficking landscape. And as those new things evolve, I'll share those. And then we have just my life as it is. Those ones are rarer. I want to let my viewers in on my life, but I also am pretty bogged down with requests and updates about all the things we talk about. So I made a commitment this year that my content wasn't going to be as heavy and it wasn't going to be as dark. And so far we're off to a great start.
I love it. So are people thankful for the resource you're providing them when you get out and go after this legislator? Are people really like embracing that in you and be like, are you getting I got to ask, are you getting a lot of pushback in this topic?
No, it's very well received.
Okay.
People are really grateful for the updates. They're really grateful to hear about what's going on. A lot of people don't realize even how pervasive some of the issues are that I address. Sometimes they're hearing about these topics for the very first time. And as parents or minor children, they're very grateful for the knowledge because it keeps them or their children safer. And that in itself, one person hearing about a topic that could save their child's life, that could save them from years of heartache, that could protect them in a compromising situation. One person knowing that information, I feel my job's been done.
Yeah.
But the fact that many can hear it is the honor and the privilege of a lifetime.
Wow. Yeah. No, I love that. I love that you've been received, because sometimes, you know, we're doing some work out there, and
oh man,
not everyone loves it.
Not to say there's not times that they hate.
Right. I mean, it happens, right? But here's the deal. I think that's what happens when we have a voice.
For sure.
When people actually want to use their voice for something, like you're gonna get the backlash. That's kind of what we sign up for.
Absolutely.
You know, we sign up for the backlash. You know, I look at what I've done. I would never take that back.
Yeah.
Like, I love what I do, and you know, it doesn't sit well with everybody.
Yeah.
No matter what you say, we all want love.
Yeah.
That's what we're seeking.
Yeah.
It's the real true love, though.
Yeah.
Right? I call it, it's the agape love of God.
Yeah.
That changes from the inside out, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the love, that love that knows no wrong, that love that has no agenda. That's what people really want. That's what they're seeking when when we have those pains and we start filling with the counterfeit, we're actually seeking a place of belonging.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's really important for me, especially, and you, I know as well, to let them know they matter and their stories matter. Going into something though, because what we do, it can also create a lot of victimhood.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you encourage your community to stay out of that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I have a pretty clear image in my mind when someone has passed from victim to survivor.
Yep.
And it's when they believe, not when they believe, but when they want freedom for themselves. Even if they don't believe it's possible, but they want freedom for themselves and they want to pursue healing. They don't know where to start. They don't know what it looks like. I feel like that's a pretty clear distinction when someone makes the pass from victim into survivor. And I think victimhood is tossed around in a way these days that feels so gross on the tongue. We say the word victim and we think of people poor meing and boo-hooing, and I hear the word victim and I see someone who is so lost and so broken and doesn't know what freedom looks like yet. And I always encourage people to just start the process. Yeah. And it's such a privileged perspective to say, just go to therapy, because not everybody has the financial means to go to therapy. Not everybody has health insurance that covers therapy. Not everybody has licensed therapists in their area. Yeah. And so I understand when I say therapy saved my life, and that's where I recommend every survivor start. Yeah. That's a very privileged perspective. There are other ways to begin that journey too. There's so many resources that are free for starting the process to unraveling the space that you're in now to begin anew and rebuild. So many free resources to start. And I just encourage you to Google grounding techniques and coping mechanisms and understanding pieces of where you've come from into where you are now and how to get past the cycle that you're stuck in.
Wow. Yeah, I agree with you. It's so big, and even that victim, and maybe it's not even the victim, right? Yeah. You're broken. We were all there. I was there.
Yeah.
I remember. Matter of fact, I'll be honest with you. Last night I watched Jesus Revolution, the movie. Have you ever seen it?
I don't think so.
It's a new movie, just came out, but it was in the theaters and just came out. And there was a moment, and actually his name is Greg Laurie. He's a big pastor in the world now, but there was a moment where they were into drugs and all this stuff, and it was the hippie movement, Jesus Revolution and the hippie movement and different things like that. And his girlfriend said, her sister almost OD'd, and so she kind of started seeking this out, and she's like, just come with me to do this. Well, she gets baptized, and he's like, how does it feel? She's like, you'll find out. In that moment, you have to watch the movie in that part, but I started bawling like a baby.
Yeah.
Because I remember that moment when I was so broken and God showed up in my life with Christian hip hop, actually. That's how I got saved. That's for a different story though. But I remember saying, I'm this broken, and someone's telling me I'm wanted at the table.
Ooh. Yeah.
And
that's a revelation that'll wreck you every time.
Come on.
Every time.
And man. I bawled like a baby last night, remembering that moment.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I remember when I was that deer in the headlights, like, what is this?
Yeah.
But I saw freedom. And I saw something that is different, that I don't have to, and not even just freedom from what I dealt with, freedom to be who you were created to be, freedom to not be compared to anybody anymore, freedom to actually literally have a standard for your life and actually bring the people in that will respect that standard. Yeah. People that can steward your value. Not everyone can steward your value.
Yeah.
Right? Clearly, we've all been around people, you included, people that can't steward your value.
Yeah.
And I tell kids all the time, you might not be for everybody, but you're for somebody, right?
I tell my kids all the time, you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Right.
But as long as it's your favorite flavor, that's all that matters.
Absolutely. And so I do believe that we have to show people that they can have something new.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
You're doing that with the work you're doing. I'm doing that, and countless other people, right? I'm not saying we're the only two out there. I'm
so grateful for the number of people on this hill, though.
Yeah.
Like, the more we have these conversations and so publicly,
come on,
the more we start seeing the other people doing it. Like, our algorithms start to change, and we start seeing that content more on our For You pages and on our news feeds, and all of a sudden we realize what felt like such a tiny community of people fighting for justice for the voiceless is now all of a sudden this growing movement of people who care about the lost and the broken.
Yeah.
And it feels like generations of silencing is coming out with rage now.
Yeah.
The number of people who are so loud and so ready to fight is encouraging.
Because what's going to be uncovered?
Yeah.
It's what's being uncovered.
A wicked amount of stuff is
right. That's what I'm saying. So what's being uncovered. That's why, clearly this is something. I mean, this runs deep.
Yeah.
This stuff runs deep. You know, we can go into that if we want to, but this stuff runs deep.
You want to dig?
Well, of course. You know, because here's the deal. So I do want to ask you a question with this.
Yeah.
What is maybe something that's dangerous out there for these young kids that they may not be privy to when it comes to this whole arena of sexual exploitation? How are they maybe opening the doors? And besides of course the blatant abuse, right?
Yeah.
That they can't control that. But what may be some dangers that they don't know they're opening a door to be exploited?
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
So it really depends on the level of education they've received from their parents or from their safe adult in their life. But the largest one, the primary topic that I cover would be online safety for children. The majority of minor users of social media don't recognize the harms that can come to them at any given moment. And the predators lurking inside of every single social media platform waiting to inbox them often will pose as children their age to get some kind of identifiable information. The objective of grooming is to create safety and trust in a relationship to eventually take the conversation or the relationship to a sexual place. Oftentimes, kids land in one of the primary scams we see when it comes to predatory behavior online and minor children is sextortion scams. And that's where you are able to establish a groomed relationship with a minor to get nude images from them. And then they threaten to send those images to family if the child does not get a set amount from their parents and sent to the predator.
You mean like money?
Money. And not only has this predator then collected the money from the child who agreed, but then they sold the child sexual abuse material somewhere on the internet and made a profit. A lot of kids get really, really nervous when it comes to nude images that they've shared with a friend, and they're scared about it possibly ending up online. I want to tell you about a resource. It's called Take It Down. It's made by the National Center on Missing and Exploited Children. So if you have at any point in time shared nudes with an ex-boyfriend or a best friend, or maybe you took a picture and you saved it in a draft in your folders and all of a sudden it went missing and you're concerned about where it went, I just want to encourage you to use this resource, because even if your images aren't currently online, but you're concerned about the purpose of the person who has them and what they may intend on doing with them, just by using the resource, your image has a unique thumbprint put onto it that's sent out to all electronic service providers. And if it does ever get made public, it's immediately taken down, and they have a 24-hour takedown time. So you can be comforted.
Yes.
You can be comforted in the knowledge knowing that in the event that your nude images are shared with somebody without your consent and those are made public, they can be removed from the internet.
Good.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that. So thank you for sharing all that, because it is important to know, right? Sometimes we walk into a trap and we don't know we're walking into a trap. And so it's definitely.
Well, in the counterfeit, everybody's looking for love, and somebody says it's here and this is the option and this is the answer.
Yeah.
And so many different avenues and ways that kids end up with pictures of their naked bodies in the hands of somebody else, and for so many different reasons. But if that's ever happened to you, may the shame melt off you, and may you find comfort in knowing that you are not the only person who's ended up in that position, and you're going to be okay.
Man. It's heavy stuff. I love it though. It's good. No, because it needs to be said. And I love that we have people out there willing to do this.
Yeah.
And be a voice for the voices. When you hear the voice for the voiceless, you say it a lot.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
That was me.
That was you.
That was me.
Yeah.
I had no voice. And when I tried to have one, I was silenced.
Yeah.
And then again, and then again, and then again. And I'd try to find my voice, but it would be a whisper. And it would be in places where I was by myself, because eventually you grow sick of people telling you not to speak.
Right.
And you leave the abusive environments and you realize that you have something to say and it matters, and there's no one there tell you not to say it anymore, aside from maybe the troll or two on the internet.
Sure.
But you will be heard regardless of who tells you they don't like you or they're not listening. I'm not here for you. This is for me. And if somebody else can find freedom because I found it too, then I'm going to keep going.
Wow.
And it turned into so many people saying, thank you. This is so healing for me. And that just rocked my world.
Yeah. It's amazing. Well, and look at what you've been able to do. You've been able to go and live a full life.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're married. I don't know if you want.
Most incredible husband in the entire world and my best friend.
Yeah, that's awesome. And kids. And so, you know, clearly there's life after.
Yeah.
There's life after the stuff.
Yeah.
There's life after the trauma.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably when I as I've gotten to know you and you know we jumped in really fast in the last week or so. I don't even, when did we first talk? Was it last week?
Yeah, something like that.
So we jumped in pretty fast and to know just, you know, our stories and your story and different things like that. One of the things that I see is you are one of the textbook examples. I'm obviously there's many of us out there, right?
Yeah.
Textbook examples of that there can be life after.
Yeah.
Right. And so what that I think you exemplify to many young people, because it's not just girls, it's boys too, is that say, you know what, there is things that we go through, you know, but we can have the redemption in our lives and still live a full life and still give our heart to someone when we never thought we could.
Oh my gosh. That is something I get asked about all the time. How did you go from not being able to trust anyone with your heart, let alone with your body?
Right.
How did you go from that to being able to not just be married, but have children? What gap needed to be bridged to get there? And every single time I say it, literally had to come down to healing my inner child.
Yeah.
I had to have regular conversations with her and remind her that she is not in imminent danger, that she is not going to be harmed ever again. And I had to spend time reparenting her because she was never parented properly. I had to spend time protecting her because she was never protected. I had to spend time telling her truths about herself to help unravel the foundational lies that had built into the woman that I am now. So many years of lies that were told to me by man and by my inner voice and collided into a monstrosity of sadness and fear. And when I spent a lot of time telling her that she mattered, even though no one told her that, I'm telling her now, and I'm the only person who's going to never lie to her. When I spent that much time with her, I got to a place where I wasn't afraid to be touched by my husband. I wasn't afraid he was going to hurt me. And it helps to have a spouse that respects your consent at all costs, respects your bodily autonomy, like his life depends on it. And having children that we've taught those same values to, who respect when mommy just is touched out, I'm touched out. And you've got a toddler that says, okay, mommy, but he's in his jungle gym phase, so he's going to try to jump anyways.
Wow. Yeah, I'm pretty big, so I think I'm a jungle gym to a lot of kids too. I used to work in a daycare years and years ago, and it was funny. They used to mess with me, put me in within ratio in the smaller kids' rooms, and obviously you're a big guy. So
they're climbing like a tree.
Climbing like a tree.
Dude, my kid does that all the time, and I'm like, man, if I could karate chop a kid.
Yeah, right. Sometimes kids walk under me, and I'm like, I almost step on them.
Walk on.
Like, oh my gosh, like guys, you can't walk. I'm too big. I'm like the Jolly Green Giant. You can't walk under me like that. No,
my gosh.
No, amazing, and I'm proud of you. I just want to say I'm proud of you for what you've overcame, because no matter what it is, pain is hard to overcome.
It really is.
And being able to be in a position where not only can you overcome it, but be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
You're going after something here, clearly, right?
Yeah.
I'm going after something. You're going after something. What is that end goal? I mean, I know there's going to be work to be done for years and years and years, way past our lifetime. But what is that end goal? When will you sit back and be like, okay, there's some real changes being made? I want to hear a little bit more about the White House too. But when will you look at it and be like, all right, people are finally getting it?
I don't know that the work will ever be done. I I say this pretty regularly. They will find my headstone on this hill because I will die on this hill.
Yeah.
I don't know that the work will ever be done.
I agree with
I
that.
don't know that I'll ever be satisfied to sit back and say, my work is done. There are others who are carrying the mantle, because the reality is there are others right now carrying a mantle. It looks similar to mine, but it's different in other ways. And we keep going, and we keep pursuing, and we keep pushing forward with the intent that one day others will find freedom.
Yeah.
That's my end goal.
That's it.
That's my end goal, is that freedom gets the final say. No, nothing else gets to rule or name or claim over my life except for freedom. And I want other people to know what that's like too.
I love it. What brought you to the White House? How'd you get there? I got to hear that story.
So there are a handful of nonprofits that I'm partnered alongside with in elevating research and the efforts that they're making to pursue justice for victims of sexual exploitation, and was invited by one of them to blitz across the hill, talking with the Senate, with the Congress, with the DOJ, the Department of Homeland Security. We had the opportunity of talking to so many different councils and task forces about our objective to increase and improve the digital safety for minors as it is across the digital landscape, because as it stands now, it has just become increasingly more unsafe. And if I saw today, I don't know if it passed or if it was presented, but they actually banned minors under the age of 17 from use of social media. So it's a start.
Really?
I'm not sure if it passed. I'm going to have to look, but I'm pretty sure that I saw that in my email today. So that would be an example of new things coming up that I would elevate on social media. Yeah. But we've been in conversations all day, so I haven't had a chance to elevate that one yet. So we blitzed across the hill, and then one of our meetings was in the White House with the Gender Policy Council, and that was just the coolest experience. Let me tell you, the architecture inside of the White House, it's top notch.
It's dope. Yeah.
It's so great. The crown molding.
That'd be such a surreal feeling in general.
It was very humbling.
Yeah.
Just in awe of the opportunity, in awe of the ability to communicate with our leaders who, whether they believe or not, whether they're pandering or not. I've said this before. I don't care if you're going to pander, but do you need a pen so you can sign it while you're pandering? Because that's all I care about.
Come on.
Like, that's all we care about. Let's actually get something done. Let's actually make some moves. If you say you care, show me. And put your little name on the dotted line.
I love it.
But yeah, I mean, it was an incredible experience. And I truly do believe the people we sat down with care very much about this topic, and it's proof with the conversations that are continuing to be had and the legislation that continues to be brought forward. So we hope to continue seeing fruitful change. Yeah,
well, that's just where it starts. Or you got to go up. We got to go up top.
Yep.
You know, even I've had many conversations with administrators, and it's really the administrators that need to start running for office. Because those are the ones that are going to really make the changes, but a lot of people don't want to speak out. We'll get into one of my episodes as far as what I do at another time. Brought me back to the original story about the movie 42 with that White House movie. And there's a part in there where Jackie was being called the N-word.
Yeah.
Like lots of time, multiple times, just N-word. I think it was the Phillies manager in the movie.
Yeah.
He doesn't say anything, goes in the back by the dugout, starts beating the bat against the wall and screaming, and then here comes the owner.
Yeah.
And I forgot his name in the movie, but he comes up and he's like, do you know what it's like? Do you know this? Do you know that? Jackie's saying this to the owner. I was like, no, I don't. But you do.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something. You don't have a right to pull out now. You're in this thing. Now it's not about you. There's people out here that you're in. So it made me remind of the work that you do, work that we do. It's not about us anymore.
Oh, man.
It didn't become about it. It became not about us like years ago.
Like so long.
So we have no right now.
Dude.
We have no right to quit.
Man, the number of times I've had to sit with that, where I was like, maybe I just become a carrot farmer.
Right.
Just
right.
pull out, disappear, get a farm, and I'll just farm carrots. And it'll be great. And I'll have a goat.
Right. And I'll have a goat or two.
And some chickens. And it'll be fantastic, this quiet little off-the-grid life. And every time I'm confronted with the reality that this isn't about me anyways.
Right.
This isn't about me. My feelings are valid. My frustrations are valid. My overwhelm, my overstimulation, my cup is empty. I have to do what I need to do to fill it back up. Yeah. And then I get back at this because there are so many people who need the resources and the support that people like you and I and millions of others doing this work offer.
Yeah.
And of course, if I'm not there, there's going to be somebody else who picks up this mantle who's already doing this that's going to do just as well, if not better than me. Yeah. And I'd make a great carrot farmer, but I'd be a sad carrot farmer.
Well, because
it's not my purpose.
You wouldn't be walking out purpose.
It's not my purpose. I mean, like, sure, I'd get great eyesight from eating all those carrots, but.
Right, exactly. Well, I look at the same feeling I get to go out and speak is the same feeling I got running out of the tunnel for a football game. So I figured, yep, I'm in the right place. Yep. So I love that. It is. It's not about us, and I love it. And again, it's all about empowering others to walk this journey out. You're not even walking it for them, right? We'll walk with them.
Yeah.
Because this isn't about codependency. This is about walking with them hand in hand to empower them to say, your voice is it. It can be heard. You will change the world. You just have to say hi.
Yes. You just got to say hi. You got to do it on your own.
It has to be.
I tell the number of survivors that I have that reach out to me just looking for a place. And no one's going to do it for you. No one's going to walk or navigate through the processing of your trauma for you. And it's going to be the hardest part, but you just have to start.
Come on.
And then once you're willing to take that leap and you keep moving forward, you have to keep your feet moving because no one's going to move them for you.
Come on.
And it gets harder and harder when you recognize, I have to do this for me. And then when you do it for you long enough, eventually it expands into the maybe I got to do this for others too. Maybe I have a whole community of hurting people that could benefit from this.
Right.
Maybe a whole state. Who knows? Maybe there's a whole nation of people.
Right. Well, you can only give what you have.
Yep.
And you can only release what you become.
Mental health breaks.
Right.
So important.
Have to.
Yeah.
And so it's important to be in a position where you're saying, okay, I'm filling back up. I can't pour from an empty cup.
Yep.
Got two more things for you here.
Okay.
I always ask a question. I've been asking all my guests this.
Okay.
And then I'm going to give you a chance to say any final things you want to say to your audience members.
Okay.
Or our viewers and your audience members as well. But if you go back, you'd be standing face to face with that 13-year-old Catie.
Yeah.
What would you say to her?
You're going to be okay. You're going to make it. You're going to survive this. And one day you'll help other people survive it too. Keep going. Just stay alive.
Keep going to stay alive.
Because that age was my first suicide attempt. Just stay alive. That would be enough. And if you've ever seen Hamilton, you know where that's from.
Come on.
That line hits me so hard every time. Yeah. Just stay alive. That would be enough. And for so many people, that's all they're doing right now is they're just fighting to stay alive. And that's enough for now. That's enough for now, but we can't stay in that pit forever. So when you're ready, climb out. There's resources. And it's time to fight.
Love it. And I love that. That's perfect. And I actually saw a video one time of a guy said he was going to quit doing what he was doing. His dad said, why don't you just do it for one more day?
Yeah.
And so everybody, I want you to know you can do it for one more day.
One more day.
That's all it takes. And then the next day, do it for one more day. 24 hours. We can do anything for one day. Is there any last words you want to say to anybody? If someone's watching this, they've never known you, they haven't seen you, they stumble up on you, what would you tell them?
I'm really glad you're here. And I hope that you come back. And I'm really, really glad you're alive. I know this life hasn't been kind to you. And I know it hasn't been easy to do what you've had to do to stay alive. But just keep going. There is freedom. And you can experience joy again.
Wow. It's an honor having you on.
It was an honor to be
I
here.
appreciate you coming. And
We gonna
sharing
do
your
this
story.
again.
Yeah, we're going to. There's no doubt about it. Multiple times. It's cool you live in Casper.
Yeah.
And so I really love that you're here. To everyone out there watching, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You can walk this thing out. I'm so delighted to be on this journey with you. And I just want you to know there's so much gold inside of you that's going to help you walk the greatness outside of you. Continue to live whole in a full life. And I promise you, you're going to live a life that you're proud of. I love y'all, and I'll see you next time.
Next time.